Have you ever wondered what happens after we die? For centuries, scientists have been puzzled by the question of what exactly happens to humans after they die. Is there some mysterious event that overturns all our common understanding of death? For instance, it's common knowledge that the human body decomposes after death, and over time, every component of the body literally gets stripped off. But what if I told you that there are some people whose bodies have remained just so even decades after death? This might sound far-fetched at first, but it is indeed true. My friends, that is the interesting story of one nun named Saint Bernadette of Lourdes, whose body has apparently managed to defy normal time. Not only that, many bodies of Catholic saints have been left incorrupt. Saint Bernadette and Padre Pio still look alive, which might be considered God's miracle. The marvelous preservation in the Catholic Church is full of mystery and miracles, those supernatural occurrences in time that display the power of God for eternity. Incorruptibility is one of those miracles, and Saint Bernadette is one of the saints chosen by God to show forth his power. Every Ash Wednesday, we hear, "You are dust, and unto dust you shall return." Death and decay are a fact of life for us mere mortals, all of us except for God's chosen few, the incorruptibles. These are the saints throughout the history of the Church whose bodies have not decayed over time, even millennia have passed, as in the case of Saint Cecilia, without their bodies turning to dust. The light of Christ has always shone brightest in times of darkness, and the 20th century was no exception. Certainly a dark time of apostasy and the disintegration of customs, one light that shone brightly was the canonization of Saint Bernadette Soubirous, the visionary of Lourdes, France. 30 years after her death, the body of Saint Bernadette was found in a remarkable state of preservation. It could be viewed as ironic that the messenger of Our Lady at Lourdes, a place of healing, should be so burdened by illness throughout her natural life. It seems the miracle of Lourdes was not for her. In fact, in a vision, Our Lady said to Saint Bernadette, "I cannot promise you happiness in this life, only in the next." Born into a humble family that fell into extreme poverty, Bernadette had always been a frail child. Quite young, she had already suffered from digestive trouble. After narrowly escaping being a victim of the cholera epidemic of 1855, she experienced painful attacks of asthma, and her ill health almost caused her to be cut off forever from the religious life. When asked by the Mother Superior of the Sisters of Nevis to take Bernadette, she replied, "Monseigneur, she will be a pillar of the infirmary." She lived in the convent for 13 years, spending a large portion of this time ill in the infirmary. When a fellow nun accused her of being a lazy bones, Bernadette said, "My job is to be ill." She was gradually struck by other illnesses, including tuberculosis of the lung and a tubercular tumor on her right knee. On Wednesday, April 16, 1879, her pain worsened, and she seemed to be suffocating. She was carried to an armchair where she died at about 3:15 in the afternoon. She was 35. Over the course of the next 46 years, Saint Bernadette's body was exhumed 3 times, in 1909, 1919, and finally in 1925. At the first exhumation, it was evident that a miracle had taken place. Saint Bernadette's skin tone was perfectly natural, and her teeth were still in place. Although the rosary in her hands had decayed, her virginal hands were perfect. The sisters washed the body, clothed it in a new habit, and placed it in a sealed double casket. The second exhumation in 1919 showed no further decomposition, though her hands and face had become somewhat discolored due to the previous washing. A wax mask of Street Bernadette's hands and face was created to address the discoloration. The final exhumation in 1946 confirmed that the body was intact, with well-preserved muscles and a surprisingly normal liver. This remarkable preservation is seen as a sign of divine intervention, particularly since Bernadette's body showed no natural signs of decay even after decades. The story of Saint Bernadette's visions of Mary traveled quickly, and the Church confirmed their authenticity in 1862. Pilgrims traveled to Lourdes, seeking healing and peace, with 69 cures verified by the Lourdes Medical Bureau. Despite the attention, Bernadette remained humble, refusing payment for her story and rejecting the fame that could have easily consumed her. Instead, she joined the Sisters of Charity and lived a life of humility and service until her death. Bernadette Soubirous was canonized on December 8, 1933, and is the patron saint of bodily illness, Lourdes, against poverty, shepherds, and those ridiculed for their faith. The city of Lourdes is now synonymous with the shrine overflowing with faithful seeking grace from God through his blessed mother. The reality, however, was quite different for Bernadette. Despite her visions and the miracles associated with her, she lived a life of suffering and humility, dedicated to prayer and penance. This story serves as a testament to the power of faith and the miracles that can occur through divine intervention. The reality of February 11, 1858, was quite different from what one might expect when Our Lady appeared for the first time to Bernadette Soubirous. The lives of those entrusted with a supernatural mission are often marked by incomprehension and ingratitude. Bernadette, a timid and vulnerable child, endured countless interrogations, setbacks, and struggles to make public the call to conversion and penance as expressed by the Lady in White who visited her in the grotto of Massabile. Her personal letters, notes, and copies of various texts reveal a spiritual journey filled with sinuous inner paths, guided by Providence, to accomplish her sublime mission. By understanding her inner soul, we can imitate her virtues more deeply. Her regular and stable handwriting, characterized by firm and slanted pen strokes, contradicts the erroneous view of her as inept or ignorant. Despite grammatical lapses, her writings reflect a decisive and balanced character, a high sense of self-criticism, and an overflowing generosity and love for others. Sensitive to the treatment she received, Bernadette's handwriting also reveals a penchant for solitude, reflecting her determination in seeking models of virtue and rectitude. Bernadette's journey to sanctification, which she outlined in her personal journal, emphasizes constant struggle and divine cooperation. Her goals, such as never being discouraged, seeing God's holy will in everything, and detaching herself from worldly matters to please God, highlight her serious and persistent search for perfection. Bernadette's virtuous conduct, embraced since her early experiences at Lourdes, led her to a deep theological and charitable understanding of holiness. Her life, marked by mortification and a continuous exercise of duty, exemplifies how a religious must live in mortification. This self-mortification is necessary to prevent laxity and uphold the vows and rules of a religious life. In her view, a mortified soul could enter heaven without purgatory, showing the depth of her spiritual commitment. Chosen by Providence, Bernadette, though unknown and secluded in a convent, became a living lesson of what Lourdes was to represent for the world. Her life mirrored the acceptance of pain, suffering, and even failure, all for a higher divine purpose. Despite the astonishment that a young girl was chosen to be the spokeswoman of the Immaculate Conception and to found a major pilgrimage site, her life of austerity and privation was often met with timid admiration or even aversion. Bernadette's sanctification, while a gratuitous gift from God, also involved active human participation and continuous struggle, revealing that life is indeed a warfare. Bernadette's private notes and letters, particularly one addressed to Pope Pius IX, reveal her humility, faith, and spiritual depth. She expressed her commitment to prayer and sacrifice, seeing them as her weapons until her last breath. Her life, summed up in the virtues of suffering and prayer, guaranteed her stability in virtue despite misfortunes and misunderstandings. The Church, in verifying the authenticity of revelations like Bernadette's, meticulously analyzes the conduct of the seers, making their lives a decisive testimony. Bernadette's life became a call to conversion, as effective as the miraculous waters of Lourdes. Her incorrupt body after death remains a sign of divine glory and a testament to her holy life. Thus, from April 16, 1879, her death day, until today, Saint Bernadette remains an instrument of Mary's maternal tenderness and Christ's merciful power, inspiring the world through her witness of sanctity and the promise of resurrection. The incorruptibility of saints like Bernadette serves to inspire and remind us of the Christian promise of the resurrection of the glorified body. While not a primary evidence for canonization, it is a wonderful sign that encourages faith and wonder. Bernadette's life and death, filled with suffering for heaven, inspire holiness and serve as a foretaste of the eternal promise. Her serene face, even under a layer of wax, continues to move people towards a life of faith and virtue.